All right, my friends, there's been a lot of interest in this new style of backpack, and I've carried it for 8 days and about 80 miles in a wide variety of conditions over 2 separate trips. So it's time to share with you my impressions. Hey guys, I'm Dan from Shasta Above Adventures, and this is my review of the Mountain Magic 50 Pro by Aarn Packs. First, the basics. The Mountain Magic is rated as a 50-liter pack, although that includes the big pockets up front, so the main body is actually 43 liters, but not counting the side or mesh pockets. Having said that, this pack, more than any other, can boast of the amount of gear that can actually be stored in those pockets, which is 7 liters combined. So I think that in this case, it's legit to include that space in the stats. The website states the empty pack weighs 32 ounces, just about the same as the HMG Junction and the Durst & Gear Kakwa packs. Although the weight of my pack comes in at 43 ounces, that's quite a discrepancy that I can only guess is from the listed weight being pack only without the extra 11 ounces of the large front pockets. So the actual complete weight is 43 ounces. The material used is 70 denier Robic grid stop on the main body with 210 Robic on the bottom for durability. The pack has an internal frame with a suspended mesh back panel. The idea behind these giant pockets up front is to balance the load front and back, providing better carry of weight and improving posture because you wouldn't need to lean so far forward as with a traditional pack. The pockets actually have their own aluminum stays, which is effective for transferring the weight to the hip belt, but they are removable too. Each pocket has a divider in the middle, and there are the stretch mesh little pockets on the front, and those work well for a phone or, in my case, the InReach. I should slip in that I bought this pack with my own money, but did get a pro discount, and the link in the description below is an affiliate link. Now, the obvious innovation of this pack is the load balance concept. However, there are actually 2 other really unique and creative engineering ideas in this pack. First is what they call the U-flow system, where the shoulder straps are not directly sewn into the pack body, but instead run through these rings at the top, and thus are able to move independently from the pack. Down low, there's this cord that runs through the other side, allowing the bottom to also shift and move freely. The next idea unique to this pack is the ability to adjust the pack height on the fly by pulling up on a toggle which sits behind the neck and cinching or loosening this strap down below. The harness moves vertically on a rail, and the attachment point slides up and down the rail. So before getting into all my personal likes and dislikes, I want to address these 3 big ideas by saying that in my experience, one works, one kind of works, and the third is just silly. The one that works is the load balance idea. The pack has a suggested max weight of 33 pounds, but I was loaded with 34 pounds total pack weight at the beginning of both my trips. And I have to say that I didn't feel as bad as I should have. I typically would experience some shoulder pain with that much weight, especially around day 3 or so, but didn't have any issues at all on either of my 4-day trips. So I have to say that in terms of a comfortable carry, I agree with that claim. I don't think it really affected my posture much, but that's because my usual pack weight runs around 27 pounds, so not enough to force much of a lean typically. However, it would likely make a big difference if a person were shifting from a more mainstream traditional heavy hauler pack to the Magic Pro. The concept that I find so-so is the U-flow system. It does work, but I'm just not sure how much of a difference it makes. I did some serious bushwhacking on one of these trips and never had it occur to me, thank God my suspension system is moving independently from the pack body. It just wasn't something I noticed as an obvious benefit. Although, again, that experience might be different for someone coming from a 40 to 50 pounds setup. Bottom line, I like the idea, but I can't say that I was aware of it while in use. And that leaves the height adjustment system as the one I really didn't care for. When I attempted to use it, the system didn't seem to work, possibly due to user error, but the more I messed with it, the more the pack went from being comfortable to uncomfortable. So I got it adjusted to something I liked and made a point never to touch it again. And I think that's what this makes this idea kind of silly. Wouldn't most people do that? Just do the same with the height adjustment? Once it fits your body style, what purpose would it serve to be able to shift that while carrying a full pack? I think most folks are like me and would leave it alone once it's dialed in. So it could be a much simpler system that adjusts with the pack off. Let me know in the comments if you have a different perspective on this, or if you can tell me I just was using it wrong. I'd really love to hear from you. And that leads me to the pros and cons, and the first one actually is both. The Mountain Magic Pro has a ton of adjustments. You can really tune the fit and switch it around as you move down the trail if desired. In addition to the usual hip belt, shoulder strap, and load lifter adjustments, there are the height adjustments that I just talked about. You can adjust the tension on the trampoline mesh back, and the front pocket straps have these dual sliders. I like the attention to detail, such as the fact that the front pocket straps adjust on both sides of the buckle, meaning that you can shift these around so they aren't overlapping. You can even play around with the bend and the stays in the front pockets, which makes a difference in how closely they sit against the body. All this variability is great in the sense of getting the pack dialed in to your personal body shape. However, it seems at times like it's hard to know which strap to adjust to make a difference. For example, the shoulder straps are usually one of the most important for changing how a load is carrying. But since so much of the weight is actually hanging from these front pockets, adjusting the shoulder straps doesn't really seem to do that much. As for the front pockets, I figured they wouldn't bother me so much if they were, snugged up tight against my torso, but tightening them too much led to instant neck pain, so I learned to wear them a little looser, which resolved the neck issue, but not so loose that they were swinging around. So all the adjustments end up being a bit of a con because they create just too many variables for getting the load carry just right. Although overall, I have to say that it's more of a pro than a con. I really love the style of belt buckle and wish that other companies would copy this design. It's so simple and there's no chance of pinching the fingers, as sometimes happens with snap buckles on other packs. Also, the dual straps on the hip belt work great for a snug wrap around the iliac crest. The Robic material is described as water resistant, and I was worried about that since my other packs are made from waterproof material. However, during one day of a 4-hour drizzle, everything inside the pack body stayed dry, so I was pleasantly surprised with that. I can't say if it would actually hold up to a full-on downpour though, so I would still suggest packing inside an inside liner until I knew that the water resistance was that dependable. Note though that the front pockets don't have waterproof zippers, so they were less water resistant than the pack body, although these wide open pulls are really nice to use. I really like having the things in the front pockets be so available, especially the water bottles. And since I carried them up here, that freed up the side pockets for other things like bear spray and my GoPro camera, although the camera did fall out a couple of times, so that was less than ideal. The front pockets both have dividers down the middle, like I mentioned earlier, and one is sewn in and the other has a zipper so that you can push it aside if you want to store something larger in that area. Neither divider goes all the way to the bottom, so some small things can shift from side to side. Without doubt, the most difficult aspect of this pack is trying to figure out how to pack it. What gear is both small enough to fit up front and heavy enough to make a difference in the balance of the pack? It seemed to me that the water bottles made sense for meeting this criteria. However, they are only heavy when full. As you go along and drink the water, there is less and less weight for counterbalancing. Also, since the bottles are usually filled by dunking in water, that introduces lots of moisture inside the pack, which thoughtfully do have drain holes, but also means that anything else placed in those pockets must be protected from water. For me, that's my gear bag and ditty bag, but I worried about some water leaking in and causing a problem with those contents inside those bags, although that didn't actually happen. I put the InReach in the left stretch pocket and my phone in the right, which worked great most of the time, except once when I tripped and fell and my phone came flying out and hit the trail. It only happened once, but once is all it takes for a very expensive gear to be ruined. Between that and my GoPro falling out of the side pocket twice, I started to worry that these could be very expensive trips. So consider this. If you have something small that you want to be able to access on the trail, like lip balm, where are you going to put that? It could go in the mesh pocket, but it would be hard to dig out of the pocket, especially if there's something else in there. You could put it in the big pockets, but it would drift to the bottom, so you'd have to get anything else out first to access it. You could put it in a ditty bag inside the pocket, but then you're opening the pocket zipper, taking out the bag, opening that, hoping you don't spill something on the trail. There just isn't a good place for lip balm, or spare camera batteries, or a toothpick. What I'm getting at is I miss hip belt pockets, and I wish they had them, although they would be difficult to access with the big pockets hanging in the way. Side note, they don't actually prevent you from seeing your feet. That's not really a con, although a lot of people seem to think that it's a deal breaker, judging from the comments that I've seen on other reviews. Other cons, there is a place for small items. It is this zippered pocket up top, which is great for keys and maybe sunscreen or something like that, but obviously not accessible while wearing the pack. This pocket is emblematic of a few minor details where Aarn seems to not completely free themselves from mainstream pack design, which adds small amounts of unnecessary weight, having not just an unnecessary pocket and zipper, but a key hook inside the pocket and other random mitten hooks here and there. Also, I'm not a fan of the back mesh pocket. First, I don't like this type with an attachment in the middle, which makes it harder to access inside instead of just a straight elastic across the top. Second, the pocket itself isn't very big, so it doesn't hold half of what my other packs do. Granted, that's less of a problem since some of the stuff that won't fit here can go in the front pockets. But then there's this cinch cord inside the pocket, which is just a crazy design, I think. The string gets tangled with anything being slid in or out and is ineffective in tightening down the load, which is especially strange given that there are no compression straps on the side. And that also means there's no way to snug in something tall in the side pockets like a fishing pole. However, there are attachment points though, so it is possible to rig up your own straps there. Putting the pack on takes a little more effort than standard pack, but only a few seconds more really. And it's important to remember that when taking the pack off, the big pockets hang down, so they are the first thing to hit the ground. Something to consider if you store your phone or other delicate electronics in them. And there's a single strap over the top of the pack rather than the preferred Y strap, which hold things more securely. So what's the conclusion? Well, the pack is well constructed, and the main point of effective load carry, I think, works great. Jury is still out on the long-term impact of hip and shoulder mobility free from the pack body. Ultimately, I think this pack would work well depending on the open-mindedness of the user, meaning that it takes the willingness to reformulate your packing strategy to fit this design. If you are someone who enjoys trying out innovative and clever new ideas, this could be the pack for you. Personally, I'll admit that I'm probably not that guy and plan to go back to my Kakwa for future trips. But it's been a lot of fun testing this one out, and I hope that you're hearing beyond a few minor concerns. I can't give you a really great reason for that preference, beyond just liking the simplicity and familiarity of the old style. Your mileage may vary, and perhaps for you, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages of the Mountain Magic 50 Pro. Either way, sincere kudos to Aarn Packs for some truly next-gen thinking with this innovative pack. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for subscribing. It really means the world to me. And we'll see you next time. Take care.